So we've got a big topic on the EPA's recent ruling, the AIM Act, that was published September 20th. And the goal of this legislation is to reduce HFCs by 85% by 2036. The one concern I had is being for convenience stores and some supermarkets to make the investment. You mentioned, a few $1 million investment and budgets and whatnot. I just wonder from the panelists, some locations that are not as profitable might all need investment now by this legislation. Will they be left behind? And will we have some, these food deserts or whatnot? That's kind of a concern, but I don't know if it's a shared or if it plays out in the budgeting situation or others. But I just wanted to open that up to panelists for a comment.
I'll jump in. I myself feel that it's a concern. It's a concern that we have raised with New York State DEC multiple times through their regulation process. We service a lot of areas that are the stores are not big, huge financial gains, and we stay there because it adds to our portfolio, helps our buying power, and serves that community and those employees. So, to add some of these regulations is a huge expense, and I would be concerned more so from a smaller organization, the independent grocers and some of the places that may not have the backing that a larger company would have. I would absolutely be concerned that there could be food deserts.
So one question we got in through the chat, which I think would help maybe the small grocers and medium grocers or others affected, is where can they learn about the legislation and get up to speed? What resources are the panelists going to get information, and what recommendations that you have for them?
This is kind of our specialty at our company. We have on our website, we have a resources page. Anytime new regulations come out, we try to do a one-page fact sheet. So for instance, the proposed New York State regulations that Ron mentioned, we have a one-page fact sheet on there. We have a one-page fact sheet for the technology transitions rule. We have one for this proposed regulation where we're honestly still processing the final regulation, and there are still so many things in it that are unclear. I think the normal reader doesn't even realize how much of that regulation is problematic because they don't think in terms of all of the nuances of actual compliance the way that we do. But we're going to be posting our one-page fact sheet on the final regulation within the next couple of days. We have a newsletter that captures on a monthly basis all of the regulatory changes across the country. The NASRC is a fantastic resource. They do webinars all the time. And in fact, they kicked off a webinar series. The very first one was my training on the AIM Act, overall, right? So they focus quite a lot on the regulatory and legislative side of things, also on a state level. The Green Show Partnership can be a good resource. They don't do as much of the direct relationship with the supermarket industry that they used to. It's a little more out of touch than it used to be. So what you're likely to get there is just kind of a repeat of the regulatory text. I think what people should be looking for is not so much the resources that are out there that just kind of copy and paste the regulatory text into a presentation. You can go into the regulation and you can read the text. The hard part is understanding all the gray areas and figuring out what all of that means to you. I think those are the resources that are most lacking out there. And if you find those, I think that's what the supermarket end users or all the food retailers really need is translating that regulatory text into language that is meaningful for them and that explains how to turn that into actions.
Yeah, obviously, Keely and her company are a great resource, really specializing in this area. As I mentioned before, the EPA, I think, has a nice fact sheet. They do have their almost 700 page final rule. Yeah, I think they did a nice job of listening to the feedback that people provided and then providing a response to that. So if you do have interest in reading into those gray areas or why they came up with some of these limits, it may be helpful in your assessment. And then I would strongly also start reaching out to the solution providers, whether that's a tracking and compliance company, whether that's a leak detection company like Matelex, Danfoss, and others. One, to really understand some of the options that are out. Two, those companies, including Danfoss, working nationally around these topics. So there's information we can bring to the table, including our CO2 condensing units. So I think talking to various solution providers, technology solution providers, I think is also a useful tool.
I'm gonna agree with Keely and Michael. The EPA information, the EPA website, the fact sheets, NASRC has been excellent, and I'm on the newsletter for RMS. So those are all really, really good resources. You can go on and do an internet search, and you're going to get all kinds of information. You look up GWP numbers, and every website you look at gives you a different number for the different refrigerants. I think that the resources that were spoken of today are excellent resources, rather than trying to just go out on that Easter egg hunt on your own.